So welcome. I am Lori Wingate. I'm the Executive Director of the Evaluation Center here at Western Michigan University. We're gathered here today for this wonderful lunch to hear from American Evaluation Association President Felicia Bohanon. This is the 13th consecutive year that Western has hosted the current AEA President. I think that's pretty cool. Of course, we did do virtual one year, but every other year we've had them in person. So I love this tradition, and it's great to see so many people turn out. So before I turn things over to Dr. Bohanon, I just have a few announcements. So first of all, I am really excited to announce the opening of Valeo, which is a new opportunity to learn about evaluation through self-paced e-learning. And Kelly Robertson and I, with the assistance of many other people here at WMU and beyond, have been working on this initiative for a really long time. And we're excited that we're opening Valeo with 3 courses. So these courses are listed on the little pink cards on the back of those cards at your tables, along with our web address. And if you're a current WMU student, faculty member, or staff member, we have a code for you that will give you 75% off of the course fees. And you can either email me, Lori Wingate, or you can see Kelly. Kelly, give a wave. And we'll get that discount to you. So I also just want to take a minute to tell you about the Evaluation Lab, which just opened in January. And so the lab is part of the Evaluation Center. It's directed by Dr. Brandon Euchre. Brandon, give a... Oh, innovation. And it's staffed by 1 graduate student and 9 undergraduates who are mostly here, this lovely table here. So they are learning evaluation by doing it, doing evaluations for local nonprofits and some work on here on campus as well. And this is a really exciting endeavor for the Evaluation Center because it's really allowing us to really increase our engagement with and our service to both students and local nonprofits. So if you want to learn more about the lab, you can see Brandon after the presentation. Finally, I want to thank Samantha Hooker, there in the back, taking photos, good all the photos, for organizing this event, which not only includes the wonderful lunch and this facility, but also includes arranging times for Dr. Bohanon to meet with various staff and students throughout the day today. So thank you, Samantha. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Felicia Bohanon. Dr. Bohanon is the 2024 American Evaluation Association President, as you know, and she is the first African American woman to serve in this role. Dr. Bohanon received her doctorate in community college leadership from Paris State University, just up the road, and she began her work as an independent evaluator with Gary School Corporation while she was also working on her master's degree in education and as a research assistant at Indiana University. She's worked with and evaluates K-12 and higher education institutions, social service agencies, faith-based organizations, and other nonprofits. In her day job, Dr. Bohanon is the executive director of the Office of Pre-Collegiate Programs at Northern Illinois University. Her office educates students and their families about post-secondary education options and career preparation, as well as financial literacy and college readiness. So no doubt she and her staff use evaluative thinking and data every day in their work in that office to support NIU students. So just help me welcome Dr. Bohanon.
Thank you, Lori, for inviting me, and I want to say a special thank you to Samantha. I know that, in terms of my being here and tracking me down and repeated emails, I just want to say I appreciate that, and that's one of the things that it's really great to be here, and so I want to just thank you for this opportunity to be here today. AEA is very excited for this opportunity to have an opportunity to share our strategic plan, at least our initial goals. And so that's one of the things I really want to talk about, in addition to just having a brief opportunity to talk a little bit about my strategic, my theme for 2024 conference. And so I'm going to move directly into that. As you may or may not know, our conference is taking place in Portland, and that's taking place October 21st through 26th, 2024. So, want to make sure that registration information will be coming up soon. One of the big changes with this year with our conference, and I've had some conversations about this already, is that sessions will be grouped into streams rather than typical, basically our TIG groups. And so the evaluation program will continue to be selected by our TIG leaders. And the due date for that is March 22nd, 2024. So actually, you still have an opportunity if you'd like to submit a proposal. My conference theme for this year focuses on amplifying diverse voices. And so, one of the things I looked at in terms of um, a focus on what am I really trying to do in pulling together this theme, and actually it builds on the theme from last year. And so I looked at particularly in terms of Dr. Karen Patel's work, and found that a lot of the information that she shared tied into our conference theme for this year. And so one of the things she talks about first is in terms of finding storytellers. So one of the things, if you attended last year's conference in 2023, the theme basically focused on storytelling and having diverse voices. And so I'm building on that in terms of our conference for this year. And so one of the keys in terms of looking at amplifying voices is to make sure that there are various voices, that we are transparent, inclusive, and respectful to the participants that are participating in the research. And then research and evaluation. And so one of the things I looked at was also how does this tie into our including evaluators that are bringing in those diverse perspectives, particularly in terms of looking at them as storytellers. And so that's one of the things that I'm hoping, particularly with the presidential strand, that's what will happen. And then looking at one of the things I want to do is to make sure that we have both young uh, new evaluators, but also experienced evaluators working. So one of the things is that I was particularly excited to do today was to have a chance to talk to the students that are participating in the new center and the new initiative there, and just hear some of their ideas. But those are the types of things that we want to do in terms of making sure that various voices are a part of um, evaluation, but also that we're building those pipelines. And so one of the things that we're committed to as far as AEA is to make sure that we create those various opportunities. And so particularly through our JEDI program, through our young evaluators in terms of mentoring, but also making sure that those connections are there. And so we're looking forward to having those opportunities to take place at this year's conference. In addition to that, also looking at amplifying diverse voices is critical for evaluation because one of the things that it allows is divergent viewpoints. I've had a chance to talk to various individuals about what is AEA doing in terms of making sure that some of the unheard voices are being heard. And so that's one of the things that we want to do with our conference this year. We want to explore what should we be doing in terms of our strategic plan, and I'll touch on that a little bit more as I talk about the strategic plan. And then one of the things that I felt that was particularly critical in exploring our presidential strand for this year is to look at the fact that it's crucial that we amplify a multitude of perspectives so that people are able to see themselves and feel that they can participate. That's one of the challenges that we have looked at, particularly in terms of AEA, in terms of pipeline, our TIG voices being heard, particularly in terms of making sure that the leadership of those individual TIGs that have interests, are we addressing those? Are we able to have greater opportunities for engagement with the board? And so that's one of the things that we're also looking at also. In addition to that, um, particularly in looking at with the conference theme for this year, we want to make sure that we consider how we can engage various evaluators in different ways. So, are we doing the same things that we've been doing for a number of years? What we're hoping for in terms of the sessions that we have for this year's conference, that in addition to some of the things that we've done with poster sessions and the traditional sessions, we're looking at innovative new ways that we can present findings, that we can have evaluators to connect. We're looking at some additional outside activities. And so those will be some of the things that will be taking place for our 2024 conference. And so one of the things that I'd like to encourage you to do as you think about what else AEA can do, if you have ideas, I want you to feel free to email me. Anisha Lewis, of course, is our executive director, and she's open to ideas. But I want to make sure that, particularly as we look at prepare for our conference this year in Portland, that we're able to do things a little bit differently. And that's one of the things that we're looking at as we move forward. I'd like to spend most of my time talking about our strategic plan. And as I think about, we met as a board yesterday to basically finalize the direction that we're going with our strategic plan. So we started out in the fall of 2023. We basically engaged two consultants to work with us in developing the strategic planning process. And then they work with the board committee basically to initially look at reviewing documents, looking at what information AEA had, what information we needed, and then to look at our governance structure. And as a result of this, they facilitated two board meetings and identified priorities for for the strategic plan for 2024. This may seem simple, it was not. And one of the challenges that we have faced is that as an organization, we've really been looking at who are our members, who should our members be, who do we represent. And so one of the things that AEA has been struggling with, particularly over the last 2 years, is really to look at how can we meet the needs of our membership. We realize that in making that examination, there are a number of things that we need to do. And so basically, in terms of developing a strategic plan, what we're looking at is over the next 6 months, we have developed a set of strategic goals that were identified by the consultants. And so I just want to talk a little bit about them a little bit more in detail. And one of the things as members of AEA, as individuals that are interested in the field of evaluation, one of the things that we want to make sure is that you have an opportunity to share your viewpoints. And so we will be holding a series of focus groups. We'll be sending out surveys. We want to look at both those individuals that are AEA members about the member benefits, but we also want to look at what should we be doing that we're not doing. Where are the gaps? And so that's one of the things that we're really planning on doing. And so one of the things I'll talk about at the end, just in terms of where we are for the timeline. uh, I have an aggressive agenda, particularly in terms of the timeline. uh, One of the things is that when we look at the structure for AEA, basically there's a 3-year term in terms of the president. So they serve 1 year as the president-elect, which I did last year. I'm currently in my presidential year, and then I will serve 1 year as the past president. My goal for this year is to get the strategic plan done. So I came in with the consultants as we ended up 2023, and I said we definitely need to get this done within this time frame. And so that's been a part of the challenge, is really looking at, is this realistic within this time frame? My intention really was that we would go into 2024 pretty much with more information, and then we really realized that we needed to collect additional data. And so a part of what the board did at their January meeting was that they looked at these 4 strategic goals. They basically went back and looked at what additional information needed to be collected in each of these fields. Yesterday, basically, we received a proposal last week, so you're basically getting this hot off the press from the consultants in terms of how could they make meet the time frame and what could be done so that by the end, when we look at November, that we have a strategic plan in place. We want to make sure that when we meet in October, that we have a draft of the plan that we're able to share with those in attendance at the conference. And so really we're working aggressively as a board. So when, we've had questions about what is the board doing? So one of the things that the board will aggressively be doing this year is really looking at the strategic plan. The other thing that the board will be aggressively working on to complete by November is to make sure that we're looking at our core documents. So we're looking at the guiding principles, that we're reevaluating and editing those documents and bringing those up to date. Those were last updated in 2017. Our strategic plan was last updated in 2015. So those documents, foundationally, they have a lot of strong points, but we realize that we need to bring those up to date. And so that's a part of what will be happening during this year. And so in looking at our first strategic goal, and I want to say that this is a draft. So we're still working because we've looked at the fact that with our consultants, based on the information that they initially had, we'd collected previously a member survey. We have information from a TIG survey that we've done. We had the JEDI work with us over the last 2 years. They looked at some of our documents, but we realized that that information is not complete. And so the time frame for collecting additional information, both internally as well as some of the things I've talked about up to this point, those will take place between now and May. And so when I look at particularly in terms of our first strategic goal, and I want to say draft, AEA creates a shared professional programming of high value and quality that fosters belonging, inclusion, and professional growth for diverse and multidisciplinary evaluators. So as we can see, that's pretty lofty. Okay, and so basically, in working with our consultants, basically what they looked at is what's going on with the membership. A key part of our first strategic goal is looking at, number one, who are our members? Where are we currently? And then where are we going? What does our membership want? Why are we not the member organization for other individuals? So that's one of the things that we'll be considering. And then we'll look at how can we, across disciplines, we know that there's been a continuing struggle between, particularly in terms of those in the field of education, which is a part of our foundation in terms of AEA, but we are much greater than that in terms of an organization. How can we meet all of those needs? What should we be doing? And then how is that reflected in our core documents? And so that's a part of what also will come under our first strategic goal. In addition to that, AEA is looking at what are the resources that are needed. Are we investing our resources in the right ways? And so that we realize that, we as an organization, we've, as of yesterday, we looked at reducing our net asset ratio. And what that means is that we will be able to use funds more for strategic initiatives. So we want to make sure that we're being responsive. But we also want to make sure that we're representing your interests as an organization. Our second strategic goal is looking at how can AEA be a thought leader and position evaluators as a sector to be respected, visible, and influential. What should we be doing? Because I think that particularly as an organization, we have an idea about who we are, but we also want to look at internationally, who should we be? How can we be partners? And so one of the things that AEA has really worked with over the last few years is really to look at uh, making sure that we're respectful of others in the evaluation field, looking at how we can partner with them, and then also looking at what we can bring to the table, and then also what we can learn. Our third strategic goal is to look at it in terms of our finances. One of the things that I previously did as the AEA treasurer, I served in the role of the AEA treasurer, and we have been pretty conservative in terms of our spendings, and that's based on the history of AEA. We know that in the past there have been times when we wanted to make sure that we had at least a year's worth of reserves. Is that what's reasonable in this day and age? What are the risks? One of the things is that when we look at AEA's organization, there are other non-for-profit organizations that basically went under during the pandemic because they did not have sufficient resources. We want to make sure that as an organization that we're able to take on additional strategic initiatives, want to make sure that we're making the right decisions fiscally, but we also want to make sure that we're all able to take on new projects. And so one of the things, AEA has a management company, which is the structure that a part of the structure that we've operated under for a number of years. Want to look at what are some of the things that we can do to mitigate risk, and how can we take advantage of additional opportunities as they arise. We talk about our values. We talk about the mission of the organization. Are we using our funds in that way? So one of the things that we know, particularly in terms of with young evaluators, they may not have the resources that others have, or depending on the field that one is working in, they may not have the resources that others may have. One of the things that we did that was put out on our website yesterday was in terms of providing international travel grants. That's in line with our values, but we have to look at what's needed in order for us to continue to do that, and that we know that travel costs are increasing. How can we get younger evaluators, even undergrads, to our conferences? How can we provide those opportunities? What do we need to do as an organization? And so those are all the things that we're looking at as we look at where we're going as far as AEA is concerned as it relates to finances. And for me, this is key. Because as I mentioned earlier, we can't do the things that we want to do or need to do if we don't have the finances, but what's the right mix? And then our fourth initiative our draft goal is looking at AEA has institutional capacity, leadership, and stability to be effective and support areas of expansion, data-informed decisions, and strategic goals. Do we have the leadership capacity to do the things that we say we want to do? AEA currently operates under policy-based governance. We want to look at, is that the best structure for our organization? We're basically operating under a modified version of a Carver model, and we know that it's in conflict with DEI issues. What does that mean for AEA as an organization? What should we be doing to make sure that everyone is clear about how we operate? So that some of the concerns that have come up that we've heard is about transparency. And as you know, as I look at the issue, it's not so much in terms of transparency, but we have a communication issue. And when I say that, I think that a part of the issue is really how does AEA communicate effectively in terms of our membership and those in the broader evaluation community. And so that's a part of the issue that we're also looking at, not only our governance structure, but what is it? What are we doing? How do we do it? There have been some concerns in terms of the board. How does the board communicate with the membership? So I'm being transparent in saying that there have been some concerns in terms of how the fact that we have a management company, Smith Buckland, and we also we have an AEA board. So we've had members who expressed concerns about their ability to communicate with the board. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at. We have various mechanisms for communication, but when we look at, for example, when we have a town hall meeting, how many individuals are attending? So is it the information in terms of that we're sharing, or is it that individuals don't know that the information is available? And so we're looking at, as an organization, how do we do a better job of that? We're also looking at, to be honest with you, in terms of our structure. Is that the best structure? I know that a lot of time was put into developing the current governance structure that we're under. We feel that it's operating effectively, particularly with our current executive director. We've increased staff so that we can better meet the membership needs. But we also are looking at what should we be doing differently and how can we do it better as we continue to move forward. So those are basically our 4 strategic goals. I want to talk about our time frame. So our strategic plan is based on 4 elements. We're looking at the essential questions, and these are questions that, I'm sure that many of you have seen in terms of the work that you do. Basically, we have 4 questions that we're looking at that will guide our plan. Where are we now? And we have much of that data. But a part of what the plan is that we want to reach out and get your ideas about where we are now. Because of course, there are many sides to that, and we want to make sure that we have those multiple perspectives. Where do we want to be? Again, we want to make sure that we have that additional input. So over the next 3 months, we will be sending out surveys. We will be conducting focus groups, and we will be looking at the data that we already have in terms of where do we want to be. We're also looking at what else is going on in the field of evaluation. What are others doing that we have been doing, but that you may not be aware of? And then we're looking at how do we get there. For me, this is a resource question. It's a resource question not only in terms of dollars, but also in terms of manpower. We know that typically, I had a question earlier about how much time does it take in terms of the board. In addition to the time that we will spend this summer working on a strategic plan, typically the board commitment is about 10 hours a week. We're all volunteers, and that's what that's with 4 staff that we have with AEA. So in addition to the executive director, there are also 3 full-time staff, and then the various individuals that you see that do different parts. For example, at the conference, those are not regular full-time people, but those are resources that AEA brings in terms of the things that we do. What else should we be doing? What other resources are needed? And then, of course, lastly, how do we measure our progress? Of course, as an evaluation organization, we definitely have to know how we measure our progress. Are we doing what we said that we would do? And so, as I finish up and hand the gavel over to the next president in 2025, my intention is that we will have a strategic plan that will answer these questions. This is what we've charged our consultants to do, and we're making sure that they have the resources to do that. So this is the aggressive timeline that we're working with. So when it says finalize the contract, that's finalize the contract March 15th. March 15th. March 15th. So when I said we had a board, we basically met as a board yesterday. We made a decision to move forward with the contract. So I, along with the committee, will be meeting with the consultants to finalize the contract so that that's not a barrier to our completing within the time frame. We're looking at that also in the month of March, early part of April, that we have to conduct the SWOT and the SOAR, to convene the team and the SP committee. And the SP committee is the strategic planning committee, which I'm definitely a part of. So as I said, I'm taking personal responsibility for making sure that when you come to the conference in October, that we have a draft of a plan to share with you, that we have a draft of the plan to share with you. And so this is what I'm saying with the consultants. So as I reach out to them on a regular basis to make sure that we're able to meet the expectations. We're planning on conducting a landscape scan. And then we have the membership life cycle analysis, to develop and distribute surveys in April, to April, May, and June, conduct interviews. We're looking at basically the board will meet again in person in May, and that at the May meeting we're looking at having a report at that time so that we can continue to move this forward for that date in October. So that's where you're seeing present initial findings to board for input, update and produce final report. And so those are taking place in June, July, and then there's ongoing meetings with the Strategic Planning Committee. And so that's our timeline in order to to complete the strategic plan. I realize it is an aggressive timeline. When I talked to the consultants, they told me it was an aggressive timeline. I've told them we don't have time to wait, so let's get started. Let's stop talking about how it's an aggressive timeline, and let's move this forward. So that's really where we are. And so they did go back and make an adjustment. I have talked with the board. They're clear about the time that we need for writing, and that we'll have basically a draft that we can work from in terms of writing in September and August. And so, as we're reaching out to you to get your input, we'll look forward to your involvement in the strategic planning process. This all depends on your input. The success of this plan is going to be built on you. We can't do it by ourselves. We're representing you. We can't represent you if we don't have any input from you. Are there questions?
I have two questions. Can I think you mentioned, I think you referenced the structure was like an adaptation of the Carver model or something. I don't know what that is.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
That's a great question. Okay, so Carver based.
Can you repeat the question on the microphone?
Okay, so she asked about the Carver model. So basically, the Carver model is the policy-based governance model, and basically the originator. And so one of the things is that AEA basically has an adaptation of the Carver model. So, for example, in the Carver model, uh, when we look at policy-based governance in general, it basically has a clear distinction between operations and what the board does. And so basically everything that in terms of day to day is taken the organization or the management company in this case is responsible for that. So, so when you look at our ends goals, basically the executive director has those limitations in terms of what they can and can't do. They have direction, basically a framework that lays that out, and then based on that, they're responsible for how that happens. That would be the model based on what it is, how we work as an organization. Number one, we continue to have an executive committee, which includes the treasurer. So one of the things is that the Carver model says that you do not need to have a treasurer. Having served in the role of the treasurer, we definitely need a treasurer. And particularly when we look at the people that we've had in the role, because that provides that additional insight and overview. So that, yes, we have the financial expertise from Smith Buckland, and they do all of the day-to-day kinds of things. But one of the things is that we need to always be watching our own finances. So one of the things is that we've moved from when I was a member of the Financial Advisory Board, where the treasurer was writing checks, to where basically they're managing all of our finances and everything is submitted to them, but that we are also providing greater oversight, particularly through the treasurer and then to the board. So those are some of the things in terms of the difference.
I'm just gonna see if this is on.
Okay.
That's on you. That's on you. Because then we can move that one around.
Oh, okay.
See if your mic's working.
Hello?
No.
No.
Turn it on and then.
Is our tech guy here?
No.
All right, try now.
Hello?
Does that come to the mic?
No.
Oh. Is our tech person's not here? Okay, so we only have one mic.
I could just repeat the question.
So, I mean, let's, is it on now? No.
Yeah, there he is.
Whose mic is this?
Well, it's attached to her,
From back there.
but it's not on.
Oh,
Oh, it's for the,
for the.
never
the
mind
video.
that. Sorry. Different technology, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so who else has a question? I'll just move the mic around. Did we see a question back here? Corey, did you have a question?
I have it.
Yeah.
Oh, but then I gotta take it back.
I can
Oh my
I
gosh.
can speak up.
I haven't cut out for this. Let's leave this here. There we go.
And I'll just try to repeat your question.
Well, if you can't hear it, then
I can hear you.
yeah.
You want to stand up?
Sure. I mean, I can stand up. I think I don't have so much a question. Maybe it's a question, but I think wasn't expecting to hear this today, and I'm actually really glad that it's happening
Okay.
because I feel like we're due for something like this with AEA, and frankly, personally, like from my experience over the last probably, I don't know, 6 years, really since I left grad school, like AEA has been like one thing. It's been a conference every year, right? And I'm sure a lot of people probably experience it that way too. And so really thinking critically about like what else it could be, I think is really valuable. And you mentioned this notion of like what can AEA continue to do to build the credibility of evaluation. And something that's on my mind a lot right now, because the last 3 years I've been working in healthcare where there's a lot of like evaluation adjacent fields, like quality, analytics. And yet there's always, to me, something that like evaluation is special in a way, like it brings something unique and special, and trying to build even like, you know, build my team's credibility within our organization. It just seems like there's a lot of opportunity in fields where there are like sort of evaluative functions, but they're not evaluation, and they're not evaluation. They do things like analyze data or, you know, talk to people or write reports, but it's like that valuing component that is missing often, right? So just a comment, not really a question, but kudos to the you and the board, because I think this is a needed effort.
Thank you. And I do want to say that we have a number of other opportunities for engagement. We have coffee breaks, we have e-studies, we have Eval 101, we have the student evaluation case competition, we have JEDIs, we also of course have the TIGs, and we've had a number of town hall meetings. So we do have a number of other activities that are taking place throughout the year that are and I think one of the things is that we're looking at, in addition to the conference, whatever that's going to be, and that's an entirely conversation that's under review also. What should the conference be? Are we able to hold regional conferences? What should we be doing? How should we do conferences differently? Yes.
So I guess I have a comment, question about a more specific change that's going on, which, by the way, I think is really great. I was so happy this year to see that the process of proposal review was kind of moving from that traditional TIG model to something that's a little bit broader and more thematic. So my question is, one, after all these years, because I've been an AEA member for like 19 years, both I've proposed through this system, I've been a program chair under this system. What was the impetus for changing it now, for one? And then two, is this sort of a trial? Is this still kind of an ongoing or evolving experiment, or is this kind of the system that you think we're going to have going forward?
I want to say it's not an experiment. And so that's why, as you were saying, it's an experiment. We have been receiving feedback concerning making some changes. So that's been underway for more than a year in terms of how can we do this differently and what should we be doing. And so one of the things is that I know that this was rolled out to TIG leaders um, more than 6 months prior to it actually being presented. And as I sat in on the first meeting with the TIG leaders, and there were still questions, realized that, whether individuals heard it or not, I know that particularly with Zachary, who's responsible for working with TIGs, that had been announced, discussed, asked for feedback on several occasions prior to it actually being rolled out. But the answer to your question is no, that is the intention of going forward. And a part of that's been being driven in terms of looking at the conference overall, in terms of the fact how many sessions should we be offering, what's reasonable. We realize that based on the number of sessions that are currently taking place, we're not able to fit into a number of different venues because we have so many sessions and we need so many space. So one of the things you will notice at our 2023 conference, there were some slight changes in terms of when sessions were offered, that there was a little bit more of a break and all of that kind of stuff. That actually is a slow transition. And because some people are very comfortable with what we've always been doing. And so that changes is harder. Even as I listened to some of the comments about why are we doing this, even though it had been discussed for 6 months, there was still a lot of comments, and we were able to make some changes, particularly in terms of how some of the strands in TIG leaders felt were not worded correctly, and so those changes were made also. So we're trying to be responsive, but also to look at how do we move forward. So I'm glad to know that's going well.
I'm glad it's happening.
Thank you. Yes, and then.
As people are preparing to submit their conference proposals for this year, I know that we're all writing to the conference theme. And thinking about transparency, and although I know capacity is certainly an issue, is there a plan, or does this occur in the back end, where the extent of the selected proposals actually align with the conference theme in terms of, who's presenting, are young evaluators brought in, who's going to actually be able to come to the conference beyond just the way we're speaking? I guess, to what extent do reviewers consider the extent that their selections do fit with the conference, like the values of it align with the conference theme beyond what I can say about my own submission?
I understand your question. Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't have the answer to that in terms of how individual TIGs are evaluating submissions. But this is something that I will bring back to Anisha and her team to make sure that this is included. Okay, and so I think that that consideration is critical, and one of the is critical. So I was telling someone I have Anisha on speed dial, so this will be one of the comments that I will make sure that goes to both Anisha and Zachary today in terms of that, and that we're doing what it is that we say we want to do.
I have a question. I just briefly to that. I think from being involved in some of the review processes, if I understand, you're talking about like, empowering voices, and not just saying that you want empowering voices, but are we empowering voices by who we're selecting and so forth. Sometimes it's hard because it's blinded, but you do get the chance to say, is this your first time? Are you an emerging evaluator? You come from outside, so there's a few standardized things that AEA has done across the TIGs to kind of help facilitate that, but beyond that, I'm not too sure how the individual accounts for that. My question.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is, again, my name is Zach Tilton. I'm a doctoral candidate here in the IDP program. Been coming to AEA since 2015. Love AEA. As I volunteer and serve in AEA and come, I just continue to appreciate how much I take for granted as a member of what it takes to make AEA happen, right? And I really appreciate these types of presentations where we get a little bit of the inside, scoop into how the sausage is made and help us realize that it takes a lot to manage an association with thousands of members. So maybe we had a high water mark at some points, a little lower now, but as treasurer, as someone as president, as someone who's served on the FAB, on all these kind of different capacities in the board, you have that insider knowledge, you can translate that. My question for you is, for young and emerging evaluators, or those who are like maybe unfamiliar with AEA before this, or those who are just doing evaluation or accidentally doing evaluation and coming to know what AEA is, like how do you see even what you presented today about the strategic work that is happening? What difference will this make for the average member of the association who probably doesn't even know the structure of TIGs, doesn't know policy governance, doesn't know like all of the machinations and history of how things have happened and played out? Like, what's the so what for them if they're hearing about the stuff that's happening in the background? How might that translate for them, and why should they care about the changes that are happening in the association level for their day-to-day kind of membership, their practice as evaluators, when they think about the field and field building? What do you see as it translating to for them, like the average member who's maybe not tuned into the insider baseball type of things of AEA?
I think the vision is that AEA today and AEA 5 years from now will be very different. And so if you want to be a part of that, if you want to have a say, I'm saying that this is your opportunity to do that. If you're concerned about this, or not only this organization, but the field of evaluation, this is the place where you can make a difference. And so that's what really comes to my mind. I look at how I became involved in AEA. It was, I'm a part of this organization because this is a place where I can make a difference. And we as a board, we as an organization are saying we're willing to make the investment at this particular moment to make a difference for you. Yes.
I just had a bit of a comment about the conference proposals, and Zach spoke to a good deal of it, but I think even the questions that ask, are you a first-time conference attendee and those things, I don't think peer reviewers, and I've peer reviewed for 4 years, programmed here for the second year now, I don't think reviewers can use that information or even get that information when they're reviewing a proposal. And it's something we've been running into where you can kind of infer sometimes who a person is that is presenting or submitting to your TIG, but at the same time, sometimes you can't. And we also get asked, how many people do you expect to attend this session? And a lot of times, that's more dependent on the person that's presenting rather than the topic. So the blinded process is really like it's of course a very good tool for getting those like individuals that are lesser known up and lifting up their voice, but it also hurts us because we don't know if they truly are representative of these values or perspectives that we're trying to amplify through the conference theme. So there's a bit of a paradox there, I think, that needs to be addressed, and especially as future conference themes, how to work that into the true peer review criteria that they go through. That would be really, really helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I think there's a qualitative aspect to it. And this is just one example, but I learned from someone who's actually on the Young Evaluator TIG that they submitted a proposal that would have been youth-led, and they had funding to send the youth, and it got rejected. Yet all of the Young Evaluator sessions I went to said, involve youth, bring them to conferences. And so it almost beyond just the yes/no questions, having that place to, as a reviewer or even as a proposer, to say what is unique or value focused in a specific place would be really impactful, I think.
evaluators get involved, especially like with conference and stuff like that. So like are there like programs or initiatives that's already in place for younger evaluators to like, you know, participate within AEA, and also like are there like part of the strategic plan, are there like more initiatives and programs that's going to be coming up to like get us kind of involved in the
So yes, our currently most of our programs for young evaluators are focused on graduate students. This conversation today has helped me to say we need to do more working with undergrads. So I'm going to, you know, and I can say what I can start doing this year. As I met with you all this afternoon, that's what my heart is in terms, and it's not with graduate students, but in terms of making sure that those opportunities are there. And so my plan is to go back and say, what can we do this year in terms of looking at undergraduate students, particularly in addition to some of the other initiatives that we're looking at. So while we're allocating resources, let's make sure we're allocating them in line with what you've mentioned are our values. And so I'm committed to doing that. So you'll be able to hold me accountable at the conference based on that. That doesn't mean we can fund everybody, but I'm saying that I'm committed to that.
Felicia, could I just add to that? I'm on a management group for a global network called Evaluation, and it's all about supporting young and emerging evaluators. One of the initiatives is helping young emerging evaluators get into more leadership in VOPs or volunteer organizations for professional evaluation, which AEA is one. There's a strong partnership with AEA and Evaluation, and so there's definitely opportunities, and if anyone in the lab is interested in learning more, we'd be happy to share more about that and how AEA supports Evaluation and vice versa, and, you know, not just graduate students, but all of the kind of in that youth and youth-oriented, young-focused evaluators.
In fact, Zach and I have been in conversation trying to figure out how to get us together.
Do we have one more question or comment?
I have a question / comment.
No, I'm sorry, everyone has had a question / comment. I think it's funny, is there a comment on it?
No, so, well, I mean, mine's actually a little bit of levity. When we say young, are we including people who are 41? Like, there's a cutoff for young. Is it 50? Is it 65? What's retirement age now? 67?
Technically, it's 35.
Are you serious?
For various organizations, you need all youth. If you're young and emerging is less than 5 years, and young is under 35. So it's pretty.
Are you kidding me? Does AEA have something?
It's new.
Is that, I don't see my therapist until next Monday. That's crazy number.
Okay, so make sure when you leave, you take something, you take a rail card, a sticker, a Sharpie, don't leave empty-handed. We're all like filled up with excitement and enthusiasm and positivity about the future of our field. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Felicia.